Regular meeting for Tuesday, May the 18th, 2021. Glad to have you here tonight. We'll take note that all commissioners are present, along with county manager, attorney, deputy finance officer as well, and our clerk. Let me remind you to silence your mobile devices. If you have devices that are going to make a noise with you, please take a moment right now to silence those, put them on vibrate so that they do not interrupt the meeting. I'll ask you to, as you come to the podium tonight, if you speak, please be sure that the microphone is on. A red light will come on top of that microphone when it is on, and be sure that it is on when you're speaking so that we can all hear you and we could get a good recording of the meeting. We're delighted tonight to have Pastor Ed Stevenson with us from the Arnie's Fairgrove United Methodist Church. Brother Ed, if you will come to lead us in our invocation, and following that, J.R. Simpson, our county attorney, will lead us in the pledge to the flag. Let's stand together, please.
Before I begin to pray, I would like to introduce my new wife to the council and to those here gathered. As many of you know, my late wife went home in 2013, and God has blessed me with another beauty. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you. Let's pray. God, it is a blessing and it is a joy to come before a public assembly today represented by the government that allows us to invoke your Spirit and to give you our praise. This is not allowed in every county in this state, and I'm so very proud to be a citizen of Burke County where we still have this right. Lord, we thank you for these men who have given of themselves and are giving of themselves. Help us to remember, Lord, that they are men, just men, in both of the meanings of just. With the crowd here gathered tonight, Lord, with so many, there will be differences of opinion that cannot help but be. But help us to remember, Lord, that we're all nearby grown and that we can allow someone else to have a difference of opinion. And that when we leave here this evening, whether our opinion carried or not, we are still citizens. We're still civil human beings. And let us remember whose we are and for what we are about. Lord, I ask that you give these men now a double dose of your grace, a double dose of your wisdom, and a double dose of your courage. We make our plea and we offer our prayer and praise in the name of the only one who can save us, your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would you please join me in the pledge to the flag? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
This brings us to item number 4 of our agenda tonight, approval of agenda. Gentlemen, you've had the package for several days. I would entertain a motion at this time to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us. Item 5 brings us to approval of meeting minutes. We have minutes from March the 26th, 2021, Board of Commissioner recess meeting, April the 6th, 2021, Board of Commissioner pre-agenda meeting, and April 2021, Board of Commissioner regular meeting. Gentlemen, you have had the opportunity to review these minutes. I'll entertain a motion for their approval.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed those minutes and found them to be in order, so I make the motion we approve the minutes as written.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. If you will, move your microphone around there where it can get to you just a little bit better. Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That's all of us, Madam Clerk. We have one item of presentation tonight. This comes from our Tourism Development Authority financial update for the period ending March the 31st, 2021. This will be presented by Ed Phillips, our Tourism Director. Evening, Ed.
Good evening. How's everyone?
Good.
Good. There's a crowd here tonight. I guess they came to hear me speak. That's the only thing I can think of. Well, good evening. I wanted to bring you guys up to date on the first quarter of, which is our third fiscal quarter, but also the first quarter of the year, and share some really fantastic news for you. We always felt in the tourism industry that coming out of any kind of an economic crisis, you think, what's going to come back first? And people really want to travel and get away from home. They've been cooped up. And our tourism industry here in Burke County is very, very strong. In fact, I'll tell you this, it's not part of our presentation tonight, but March, just got our report from the county finance office, Margaret. March was the best March we've ever had for occupancy tax collection. It beat out the previous best year, which was 2019. So we're coming out of the pandemic into a recovery very well, and we feel good about it. You're going to have some financial documents up there on the screen in just a minute, but I want to tell you a little bit about what we're looking forward to in tourism this year, and also going forward into 2022. If you don't know it, people ask me all the time, how many hotel rooms are there in Burke County? And we just added some. We just added with the, looking right here, the Baymont and Super 8 just added 160 rooms in March into our inventory with an average daily rate to stay there between $60 and $70 a night. That fills a niche for a market that we didn't have before. It's brand new, it's old building, but brand new furnishings, beds, linens, everything in these rooms. I've toured them, they're very nice, and they're getting a lot of business off of the interstate. Vacation rental demand remains strong. Last year in June, we had 160 vacation rentals in Burke County. It drops over the winter time, but it's already starting to pick back up with others. We know the North Carolina School of Math and Science is going to open next year, and they're already hiring people, bringing in candidates, and they'll start having meetings there as well with their board and trustees, whatnot, in Burke County like they did in the past, and they're coming back to meet, so that's going to add to our business here as well. Business travel, which is the mainstay of our hotels during the week, has been strong. It's been very strong. Started kicking off, I'd say, in March. It probably added to our March record. It has grown a little bit soft in the last few weeks because now there's supply chain issues with some of the manufacturers being able to get parts. And so that slowed down that a little bit. Also, our sporting events at Catawba Meadows Park and at other facilities, there's a new promoter this year. He's from South Carolina, and he's bringing in more and more teams that are 3-4 hour drive from here that have to spend the night, so they're not commuting to home. That's a boom for our hotels that want that park, want that business. If you haven't heard about Horsepower Park near the Foothills Regional Airport, they're having a special event Memorial Day weekend, and that's going to bring in, they're saying 25,000 to 40,000 people for that weekend. So we're excited about that. So there's a lot of positive things going on. You can see the financials, budget, and also our balance sheet. We currently have as of March 31st, we had $419,000 in the bank. Some of that money is set aside for City of Morgan and the town of Valdez per our legislation that allows them to receive some of the funds for tourism marketing there. As far as our budget, we're doing very well in our budget. We had a TDA board meeting today that Commissioner Mulwee chairs, and we passed a budget amendment actually adding money back into our budget. So today we added $125,000 back into our budget, which we're surprised by that, but it's a good surprise. So I'll entertain any questions or comments on the budget, and then I have a presentation after that.
All right, thank you, Ed. Any questions, comments for Ed on his presentation?
Mr. Chairman, I got all my questions answered in pre-agenda, so it's a good budget.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept this report.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's all of us. Yes.
So we would also like, I'll show this to the board and then I'll turn around to the crowd, but this is our tourism badge logo, which is on bumper stickers, hats. There's a gentleman in the back right now that has a hat on. I saw when I came in with the logo on it, which is available at the Morgan General Store. Open 9 to 5, and I don't know their hours, but anyway. So this is our badge logo, and the Tourism Development Authority Board had these made, and there's only 3 of these that have been made, and the other 2 are in Raleigh at our House member and Senate members' offices, where they proudly represent. So the TDA Board would like to present this to the county commissioners tonight to hang in a prominent position. I suggest under the seal somewhere here.
You would do that, yeah? Gentlemen, let's go down and get a quick photo if we can.
Who's going to take the photo? We need to, there we go. I didn't think ahead on that.
All right, you ready? Cheese. All right, I got several.
Thank you, guys. I'll leave that with you. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to item number 7, scheduled public hearings tonight. We have 2 public hearings, with the first one being coming from Board of Commissioners Ordinance amending Chapter 6 Animals, Burke County Code of Ordinances, and a public hearing. This will be presented by myself and Debbie Hawkins. Let me take care of one other item of business. I meant to do this earlier. Let me remind you, and I'm glad that we're able to open our room up tonight to more folks than we've been able to in a long, long time. And we're glad you're here. However, if you have not been vaccinated for COVID-19, let me remind you that you're compelled to be wearing a mask. So I would ask if you're in that category, please take care of that. I think we have some masks maybe out in the lobby, Madam Clerk, or we will find some masks if we need to. Hopefully you've all been vaccinated. That would be great. So you're on the honor system for that, and we appreciate that. Also tonight we have with us the chair of our Animal Advisory Board, Debbie Hawkins. Debbie, would you come and present information that you guys have been working on? Let me thank Debbie for the work that this board has been doing. We made some changes to our ordinance quite some time ago, and at that time we tabled Chapter 6, a number of items, and asked that board to go back to the drawing board with those, and they have been working on that now for a number of months, and they've had many meetings, and I suspect that many of you are here to speak to that, and we appreciate all that you may have to say tonight. So Debbie, tell us what you have for us.
Well, I'm Debbie Hawkins, Chair of the Burke County Animal Advisory Board, which is appointed by the County Commissioners to advise you on what is best practice regarding the care of animals in our county. As stipulated in our county ordinance, this board is comprised of law enforcement, a licensed veterinarian, pet owners, and nonprofit rescue representatives, with consultants from Burke County Public Health and Burke County Animal Services. Our mission statement includes advocating for the humane treatment of companion animals, promoting and protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the companion animals, and advising you on improvements to the animal ordinance. This evening, you are re-reviewing sections to the animal ordinance addressing chaining, tethering, and breeding and transferring. We presented the original ordinance revisions in August of 2020, which were based on best practice. A few individuals voiced concerns about a couple of the sections. You, as county commissioners, asked the advisory board to review these sections, seek input from the public, reach a compromise, and resubmit to you. Over the past 9 months, the advisory board met with individuals, including kennel owners and individuals who stated they belonged to the American Kennel Club, the American Dog Breeders Association, and the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association. Our review included standards and position statements from the AKC and the ADBA. Both organizations have conditions for breeding, chaining and tethering, and responsible pet ownership. Recommendations contained in our proposed revisions come from their standards. The people attending our meetings voiced repeatedly how changes we made to these sections were point on and congruent with their breed club standards and practices. In fact, many of the practice standards from the breed clubs are much stricter than the revisions we've submitted. The breeding and transfer amendment to the ordinance does not eliminate breeding of dogs and cats, nor does it target responsible individuals who already adhere to proper breeding standards. The intent of this section is to protect litters being born and then transferred to a new owner. Our current ordinance does not require an owner to have puppies and kittens from their dog or cat's litter receive any vaccines or wormers prior to being sold or given away. Puppies and kittens end up at vet offices with compromised health, sick from parvo, distemper, rhinotracheotis, upper respiratory infections, and a variety of worms. All of these are avoidable with core vaccines and preventative care. These health issues are the results of irresponsible or ignorant breeding practices and a lack of standards. These risks are serious enough to warrant the establishment of specific conditions for the breeding and transferring of ownership for litters. Over the 9 months during our public meetings, several individuals who breed attended. During these meetings, our initial recommendations were reviewed. The section initially included a breeder permit. Those in attendance opposed this, stating they had already belonged to breed clubs and did not see the need for an additional permit. We deleted the breeder permit. The section recommended a licensed veterinarian administer the vaccines and testing for puppies and kittens. This would have required a payment to a veterinarian for tests and core vaccines given at 6 to 8 weeks old. The individuals that breed who were in attendance opposed this, stating they give their own vaccines. There were concerns on behalf of the advisory board that not all Burke County residents know how to properly administer and store vaccines, nor understand that vaccines purchased from a non-vet are necessarily stored in a way to ensure viability. However, we agreed to delete this. The Animal Advisory Board then recommended a list of specific vaccines, immunizations for puppies and kittens. Those attending opposed, stating they did not need a list and did not want to be told what vaccines to give. We deleted the list. This section initially recommended waiting a year between breeding a female for the health of the female. The breeders opposed it. We deleted it. Registering litters with Animal Services when it's included in the initial draft to assist with keeping track of litters being born and transferred. The individuals who breed opposed this, stating it was cumbersome, so we deleted it. The advisory board's initial draft included recommending a buyer visit the home to see the mother dog or cat and see where the puppies and kittens were raised and housed. Some breeders indicated this was already their standard practice. Some opposed, saying due to COVID, they did not want people coming to their home. After much discussion, we compromised by including a statement in the purchase contract that if the purchaser or new owner declined in writing to view the mother and the environment, this would be acceptable. This section included a warranty of health, later changed to a health certificate provided by a licensed veterinarian. This allows for the review of the vaccinations given, with the veterinarian signifying in writing that the puppy or kitten has received the core vaccines and that by physical examination is in good health. Some individuals who breed supported this, stating they already follow this practice. Some opposed it. The seriousness of a puppy or kitten entering a new home with diseases such as parvo, distemper, or upper respiratory infections can cause life-threatening results. The advisory board agreed the health certificate is critical in the transfer of ownership of puppies and kittens. The AKC and the ADBA both list the health certificate as a standard of practice for anyone who breeds and transfers ownership. It is the only guarantee that the puppy or kitten you are bringing into your home is not sick and is not vulnerable to disease. It is the only document you have as a new pet owner that, coupled with a purchase contract, protects you as a consumer. This is the one original recommendation that we made that remains intact. The ordinance section will help improve the overall health and safety of each puppy or kitten. Transferring ownership of puppies or kittens that have not been vaccinated is an unnecessary health risk. The Animal Advisory Board also made several changes to chaining and tethering after hearing from the individuals who attended our meetings over the past 9 months. We eliminated the recommendation for supervised chaining and tethering at all times. We changed the length of the tether from 15 feet to 10 feet. We deleted the time frame in which a dog could not be tethered from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and instead listed a maximum time allowed up to 14 hours on a chain before getting a break. The chaining tethering amendment does not eliminate chaining and tethering. It does not prohibit the use of dogs for herding or hunting. It does prevent the ongoing issue in our county of chaining and tethering a dog for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no time off the chain. We began at recommending up to 10 hours on a chain, but in order to reach a middle ground with those in attendance, we raised the maximum time to 14 hours. This allowance is 4 times longer than any other North Carolina county. There must be proper application of tethering a dog with time off the chain for socialization, human interaction, and to help prevent aggression. Approving all these ordinance recommendations will help present the issues of unvaccinated, unhealthy litters entering new homes and the improper chaining and tethering of dogs. It will allow animal services to educate individuals on what it means to be a responsible pet owner and to have the means to enforce what is best for the safety and health of the animals. These recommended amendment sections are not directed at any one person or group. We said this in every meeting. The chaining, tethering, the breeding, and transfer of ownership, all of these recommendations are to address each and every one of us who has a dog or cat in Burke County. It's for everyone who is not familiar with best practices for breeding and transferring ownership of a litter, or for the appropriate means to tether a dog. And as a reminder, the entire animal ordinance is complaint-driven and based on educating those individuals on what is best practice as specified in this ordinance. Before you can educate someone on what is best practice, you must put it in writing. But education alone without accountability offers no motivation to improve. Now, some will say these ordinances are government overreach. I find this puzzling, since this statement is coming from the very people who attended our meetings and who had input into these revisions. It is not overreach when you are establishing standards of care for animals whose only protections are those we give them to keep them safe, healthy, free from harm, provide access to daily exercise, and veterinary care when needed. It should not matter whether you paid $500 for a dog or cat or found it in the street. No animal should be put in a situation that can cause injury, pain, or suffering. The value of a life cannot be measured in dollars. The ordinance revisions are provisions for the basic care of dogs and cats to help improve their health and to guide pet owners on basic care. They are basic protection from neglect, disease, and exploitation. Basic in the sense that the advisory board compromised on most of our recommendations that were initially made in 2020. The Animal Advisory Board hopes that you support these ordinance amendments as written to help protect the health and safety of the animals in Burke County. This is your opportunity to move our county towards improving their health and encouraging responsible pet ownership. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Debbie. If you'll just remain there for just a moment. Gentlemen, you've heard this report from the Animal Advisory Board. Before I open the public hearing, any questions for Debbie at this time?
Would we get to offer comment later?
Yes.
Okay. After the public?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll wait till then.
All right. Hearing none, thank you, Debbie. At this time, I will open the public hearing, and let me just make a comment at this point. All of us as commissioners have received a number of emails, calls, and other types of communication, both in favor and against these proposals. I just want to say that, simply to say that, it's not possible for us to read all those emails, in public, but I do want to assure the public that we as commissioners have received, have heard, have read, and listened. And we're going to listen to you right now as we make public comment at this time. So with that, I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would call Denise Smith.
I'm going to bore y'all because I'm going to read what I had written to you.
I've lived in this county since I was 13. I chose to stay and raise my daughter here. I love this town and county. I'm very troubled by the lack of connection between an animal advisory board that was created to address an ordinance that was just revised and passed in 2018, and I was there. I have come to every meeting that they have had since they allowed public input, and I thank you very much for that opportunity. However, I must tell you, this board, while well-meaning, is one-sided towards shelter and rescue. And while that side is important, it is not the whole of your constituents. You have a wealth of knowledge of animal husbandry in this county. Your board does not reflect that. Animal husbandry knowledge is imperative to have on this board, and it cannot be one single person or only two. Discrimination as far as requiring a breeder to be part of a breeder ambassador program that requires this person to submit to yearly inspections is outrageous when not a single other board member is required of this. It's inappropriate to do so. I believe it was made in order to keep that seat vacant, as there are many knowledgeable breeders and hunters that have not shown up because they have seen retribution under the previous management of the shelter. I myself spent 3 months without one single complaint on myself dealing with harassment from them. And to this day, I still have discrimination on my tax card. An assessor came to my property and my dogs barked, and she put on my tax card, "Beware of pit bulls." I called Danny Eisenhower. I asked for him to remove it. He put, "Beware of dogs." That's public record. That could cause someone to come to my property and steal my dogs. That is discrimination. I also asked for the removal, and we have asked continually for this to be removed, Section 679, breeding and transfer of ownership. This section is intrusive to any breeder. The language is very vague in some places and very open to interpretation in other places, too detailed in others. Most breeders and hunters have both verbal and written contracts. This section intrudes on a contract between a breeder and a potential owner, making it mandatory for a potential owner to come to a breeder's house can be and has been dangerous to both people and pets in this day and age. Every week there is a new story of stolen pets. There are breeders who have been attacked and even killed in their own homes. Potential owners could bring any number of deadly diseases to a breeder's home. And then to ask the animal shelter to police this when their hours of operation are limited is a bit ridiculous. I, along with others that have spent a lot of time and energy on meeting with the AAB, there were at least 3 Zoom meetings with technical difficulties prevented folks from speaking, and when asked, these Zooms were not available to rewatch. The meeting minutes, while available, are very vague. Sometimes we were asked questions, other times we were told to hush after our 3 minutes. There are many inconsistencies in this proposal, many instances of overreach, which I know you were told that you would hear. There are also many flaws. Your exotic section is an utter mess. It lists the same species multiple times. And if you read it, PetSmart would not be allowed to sell parakeets, guinea pigs, or tropical fish. We had to point out that the first rendition of the tethering section only allowed for cable and trolley, but then we were told that we misread it, and that's not what it said. But if you go back to the very first one, that is what it said. And please, do a Google search of rescues near me. There are more than 10, at which I stopped counting, shelters and rescues within a 50-mile radius. In the past several weeks, the animal shelter has had only 2 to 4 animals for adoption. We all agree that abuse and neglect are wrong. Number 1 on the agenda should be education. Education for all. Educate proper tethering, proper care, proper kennels, instead of villainizing and making criminals of your taxpayers. Continue to offer low-cost spay and neuter. Make it one better and provide a low-cost clinic. This ordinance has easily become very emotion-driven. I love my animals, never doubt that. But there is a disturbing trend of humanizing animals. This does them a great disservice. Humanizing a dog only causes more issues. They are canines and they will act as such. Thus, why many wind up at the shelters, as folks have unrealistic expectations, i.e. 101 Dalmatians, Lady and the Tramp, Wishbone, etc. I ask you to consider the inequity of how this ordinance has been written. An animal ordinance should provide education to your public as well as prevent neglect and abuse, and address it when found. I duly appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Let me ask you, going forward, please try to contain your comments to 3 minutes. And Scott, if you can help us with the timer, that would help us also on the screen, please. Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Excuse me, Keith Loudermilt.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight. My name is Keith Loudermilt. I'm president of the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association, here to represent our members in Burke County tonight. Get right to the point. Your Animal Advisory Board started this process with an agenda to severely limit dog and cat breeding in Burke County. Tonight, they're presenting 679, the breeding and transfer of ownership to accomplish that goal. Ironically, they've written exemptions, as was already mentioned, exemptions for nonprofits, rescue shelters, which protect some of the members of this board. If passed, you'll be treating every dog, every hunting dog breeder, show dog, and hobby breeder as a large commercial operation. Your Animal Services Department already has the tools it needs to address these issues and careless animal owners. During the series of public hearings, we, the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association, our attorney, gave your board 12 pages of existing North Carolina dog law. Nothing we offered was proposed that we proposed was acknowledged by the committee. We were told late in the process that the breeder requirements would come out, and in place would be standards of care recommended by the American Kennel Club. We supported that completely. Instead, the decision was made behind closed doors to create the breeding and transfer section that we're looking at today, and it goes far beyond standards of care. If passed overnight, you're going to make criminals out of some law-abiding citizens in this county. You'll require purchase contracts, veterinary certification, inheritable disease, health screening, no on-site transfer of animals without a contract for someone that just wants to give a kitten to a friend. Your intake numbers, and I've studied this, your intake numbers and percentages are currently very reasonable in this county compared to most counties in North Carolina. I presented some numbers to the board on that and was blown off also. You're addressing a problem you do not have. The board chairwoman has repeatedly, and again tonight, repeatedly during the public hearing, said these comments are complaint driven. You're all smart people. You wouldn't be up here if you weren't smart people. This is there's nothing in this that says that any of these requirements are complaint driven. If you pass this, it's going to be law, and you're going to have nosy neighbors serving as watchdogs for your Animal Services Department. Burke County is a conservative county. You're a conservative board of commissioners. This is a radical left-wing proposal. If passed, you'd be setting a precedent for animal extremists in surrounding counties. While the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association, we're confident that most of this would never make case law when tested in court. We are asking you not to listen, give deep consideration to the impact that this ordinance would have to the ethical breeders in Burke County. It's going to do nothing to prevent the people that let their stray dog run around in heat. We want, and your shelter is not packed with your ethical breeder dogs, I can tell you that. But I do want to thank you for your time and hope that you'll make the right decision this evening. Do not pass this ordinance as written. Send this back to a new committee that also includes hunters, breeders, pet shop owners, other constituent stakeholders with animal husbandry experience. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Loudermilt. Madam Clerk?
Kate Tozolina. Bryce McGlamory.
Bryce McLamry. I've lived in Burke County since 1967, other than 3 years in Greensboro. I'm a hunter. I raise beagles. And according to this, I would done be in jail. In other words, for the way I raise my dogs, in which I look after them good. And they talk about this. Did you hear them say that there was a hunter or a sportsman on this committee that was trying to get this together? No. It's a group that's trying to control what they don't need to control. I will say this. I look after my dogs. I raise dogs. I go by AKC standards and look after them. I sell dogs. I've never sold a dog to anybody that ever lost a puppy. And what they're trying to do here is people that are decent, they're trying to intrude on them. This is not going to stop these dogs running around up the lake. They say, oh, we pick them up everywhere. They're still going to pick them up everywhere. It is not going to stop that stuff. The only thing it's going to do is put a hardship on the people that try to do something right. The way my kennels are, I probably couldn't pass. But I've never lost a dog. If it needs to go to the vet, I take it. If I do what they say they want done, I'd have to have at least $1,500 out of a puppy the time I got under all the expenses. There was not a hunter on there. And you know, when you talk about that complaints, they want this a law. But if my neighbor complained about it, but we got one of the county commissioners here is my neighbor. I don't think that ever happened. But still, if they complain, they can come out. And then they're going to find me. Then the next thing you know, you're not going to have any animals. I am not in any way mistreating animals. If you can't afford them, you don't need them. But I am not in having more laws in this county for me to have to worry about the people impose on my property, on my land that I own. And I'd like to thank you all for the time that I had here. I do my shots. I don't mind saying that. I've done them for years. I've bred dogs for years. But the only thing they're trying to do is put a hardship. It's not going to help these stray cats, these stray dogs. It ain't going to help anything on that. Those people don't care. They let them go. But the only thing they're trying to do is make a law to put a hardship on people that tries to do something right. And they, like I say, I will state, there was not a hunter or a breeder that I heard that was on this board when it started. I've known most of you men here in the county. I've been here a long time. But I think this is one of the overbounded things that I have ever seen try to pass in this county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McLamry.
Eddie Zimmerman.
Thank you for your time tonight. I just want to tell Maynard Taylor that I appreciate, out of the people the county commissioners that I sent a copy of the dog laws and things, he acknowledged he received them, and I appreciate that. But I've trained dogs for him. I just had a dog last week place second in the nationals in Kentucky, the UBGF national competition. But I've bred dogs all my life since I was probably 10 or 12 years old. Couldn't even carry a gun, but I had my beagles and I went out hunting. And this is an overreach, and that's where Debbie got the word overreach, is from me and Debbie and Keith. And it is an overreach of laws. They're ridiculous. And at the first of this thing, there was 131 ordinances, 53 pages of it. There's more than that now. They've added to it instead of listening to us. We talked about having a breeder on the board. You know what they came back with? It's going to come inspect our kennels every 3 months to be on the board. We had stipulation. They got no stipulation to be on the board. This, again, is an overreach. I hope you guys can see that and have something made up that people can live with. The people like us that are breed like Bryce and Keith and Denise, our dogs won't see the inside of your shelter. There's other things wrong than all these breeding ordinances and things about having vaccinations, health certificates. The last time I was here, we brought up the thing to give the buyers a contract. to, when they bought your dog, take it to their vet of their choice and have that dog a health certificate. The vet that was on the board agreed with us. She came outside and apologized to me because they sat right there and said, get those health certificates and pass the cost on to the breeder. The vet on their boards agreed with that you could do a buyer's contract and not have to do that. But they went over her head, a professional, trained professional, and they went over her head and didn't listen to her and changed those ordinances. These things are, like I said, and Debbie quoted, is an overreach of government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman.
Mr. Wade Vance.
Yes, I'm Wade Vance. Looking over this, there's a lot. First of all, I'd like to say I oppose this law that they're trying. I would like to say, my wife and I, we have a lot of dogs. We have our house dogs, and I have my rabbit dogs. And I dare say that we probably spend vet bills, taking our dogs to the vets throughout a year as much as most people spend on their youngins going to a doctor. As far as the medicines and stuff, I've had dogs. I'm 71 years old, and between my father and I've always been around, hunting dogs. And as far as getting the medicine and stuff, I get my medicine from Tractor Supply, which they carry good medicines as far as the parvo shots or Greg's Farm Supply. I know they come in at ice. I've never had any problems. I raise dogs and sell some also, and I've never had any. All my dogs are vaccinated and had their 3 parvo shots before they ever leave me, and I've never had a complaint. And my dogs are taken very good care of, and I don't think I need somebody telling me I have to take my dogs to the vet, for whatever reason. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vance.
Leela Duke.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Leela Duke, and I'm speaking as a concerned citizen in support of the proposed animal ordinance. This ordinance provides at least the minimum standards of care for best practice as established by organizations such as the American Kennel Club and the Humane Society of America. For example, in the section on chaining and tethering, the ordinance does not state that tethering or chaining of dogs be eliminated. It states that an animal may only be tethered continuously for 14 hours. And this still seems excessive to me personally, but it is at least a place to start. This would allow the dog some time for critical interaction with people and other animals, time for exercise, and allow it to explore other environments outside of its limited parameters. I feel particularly strongly about the issue of chaining and tethering because during the times that I volunteered with Burke County Animal Services, I've seen firsthand many of the negative consequences that have occurred as a result of this. Chaining a dog in virtual isolation with no opportunity to interact with other people and animals results in abnormal behaviors such as increased anxiety, increased neurotic behavior, and increased aggression towards people and other animals. The longer they are tethered, the more aggressive they become. One of the most unfortunate consequences of this behavior is that other dogs or humans are often attacked. Tragically, it is children who may innocently wander into the dog's territory who are the victims of these attacks. Female dogs who are left tethered while in heat are unable to escape the male dogs, resulting in more unwanted litters of puppies who are so often surrendered at animal services or worse, left in a box on the side of the road. I have seen firsthand many dogs who were surrendered to animal services by their owners who had lived their lives on chains. These dogs are very difficult to approach due to their developed aggressive behavior to other dogs or to people, or they are terrified of everything and everyone, making them extremely difficult to be handled. This makes them poor candidates for adoption, which means extended stays at our shelter. It often takes weeks or months of training by behavior specialists to undo the negative behaviors which have developed as a result of the tethering. All of these negative consequences result in increased costs to animal services and thus to the tax-paying citizen. The ordinance gives those in the community who must deal with these situations a way to not only protect the animals, but to educate the public on the dangers of tethering and how these dangers can be alleviated or lessened. This ordinance gives us the teeth to be able to enforce minimum standards of care for animals, as well as a guideline to educate the public on this subject, as well as many others. It is my hope that Burke County will show its willingness to humanely care for its animals who depend on us by adopting the proposed animal ordinance, so that we will not see an animal brought in whose teeth are worn down to nubs from trying to chew off its chain, who has a chain or collar embedded in its neck from being restrained in an improper way, or who has suffered horrific injuries while unable to escape its attacker. And no animal will be euthanized because it was deemed too aggressive or otherwise adoptable. Let's not pay this price. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duke.
Evelyn Alderson.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Alderson. I'm the treasurer for Hearts and Hands for Animals. We help the community with vet bills, spay neuter, pet food. We also partner with area rescues. In 2020, we covered the cost of spay neuter for 85 dogs and cats. We paid $6,000 in extra veterinary assistance from 2020 to the present. And for animal services, we've sponsored 37 adoptions, covered heartworm treatments, as well as surgeries, and bought 7 new shelter beds in 2020. So I would like to speak to the new ordinance proposals put forth by the Animal Advisory Board. I am not anti-breeder. I have a fantastic wire-haired fox terrier. She came from a wonderful breeder whose dogs were happy, healthy, socialized. Their kennels were clean, food and water containers always clean. This should be the responsibility of all pet owners as put forth in the ordinance proposals. I'm against the irresponsible pet owner who refuses to spay and neuter their pet and flood Burke County with unwanted puppies and kittens. But I believe the proposed measures will help place the responsibility back on the pet owner and lighten the burden placed on rescues, animal services, and the general public. On the transfer, my best friend adopted an 8-week-old puppy whose owner insisted they meet in the parking lot. Her vet later informed her that the puppy was only 4 weeks old. She did not want to send the puppy back to this uncaring person, so she kept him. Before 8 weeks, puppies and kittens are learning to clean themselves, not to potty where they play and eat, and lost my place here, and not to bite or play too hard. They're also still building an immune system through the antibodies produced by their mother's milk. My friend had to work through all these missing behavioral lessons. The puppy also struggled with autoimmune disease most of his life. A vet-certified health certificate and 8-week-old restrictions could have prevented much suffering from animal and human. I would like to tell you about my dog Gracie, who spent most of her life on a chain. She was less than half her normal body weight. Her previous owner said that many times they just forgot to feed her. Gracie also suffered from severe separation anxiety. She was placed on anti-anxiety medicines until she felt safe. If Gracie's previous family was required to take her off the tether, they may have also remembered to feed her. Her anxiety may have been less knowing that someone would come for her eventually, or her neighbors would have been able to report her lonely anxiety to animal services. Even these tiny measures can make a world of difference to the animals in Burke County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson.
Sarah Carson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Carson. I moved to this county in August of last year. I chose Burke County because I like the animal laws here and I breed dogs. To my surprise, when I moved here, I was hit with this ordinance proposal. I attended all of 2 of the Animal Advisory Board meetings because I was moving here from New York. Gentlemen, if you pass this ordinance, you will be unknowingly going to war with the dog breeders and hunters of this county. If you pass this ordinance, you will be taking money away from local businesses that serve animal breeders and owners. If you pass this ordinance, you will trample all over the state-given rights of every dog, cat, and animal owner in this county. Let me first remind you that there are already good standing animal welfare laws in this county. These laws simply need to be better enforced. Education would be a good place to start. Let me remind you that our dogs and cats are our personal property under North Carolina state law. And this ordinance is not about animal welfare. This ordinance advances political animal rights agendas. This ordinance is purely based on the ideas of rescue individuals who propose invasive tactics for any breeder who wishes to produce a puppy or kitten. We have tried and tried to voice our opinions for months just to have what we say twisted and split into this agenda. We've been blindsided and kept in the dark moments before meetings so that we were unable to be fully prepared. Some meeting attendees have been stricken from voicing their frustrations because the people on the Animal Advisory Board felt that it was unacceptable to allow them the 3 minutes they asked for through the Zoom meeting platform. And I have this on film because I recorded it. These individuals have no real breeding experience, and their agendas mimic the agendas of the ASPCA, the PETA agenda, and the HSUS agenda. Burke County is a conservative county. Why are you advancing liberal agendas? Burke County citizens deserve better from their leading officials. Half of this county still has absolutely no idea of what is included in this ordinance proposal. This is due to COVID restrictions and restraints. There's been no education to the public. The advisory board calls citizens of Burke County ignorant when it comes to animals. The Animal Advisory Board has expressed that the problems are not here in Morganton, that they're in other places, but the whole county is being blanketed by this ordinance. And why are we being made into criminals? I have been a responsible breeder for 12 years, and I pray that some of you see the light, or my dog showing career and breeding career is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carson.
Patty Selm.
Hello. I wanted to say, to start with, first of all, I wrote my thoughts down so I won't ramble, but I do want to say that I view the ordinance as something that is for the welfare of animals in Burke County, for the animals of Burke County, and I hope that you view it that way as well. My name is Patty Selm, and I have been a resident of Burke County for 38 years. When I moved to Burke County, I immediately noticed problems with the treatment of animals, specifically dogs and cats. Some positive changes started taking place about 18 years ago, but the change has been extremely slow and inadequate. If you drive around Burke County, you can readily observe the lack of concern for the welfare of animals as they are allowed to run loose, putting themselves in harm's way, as well as endangering people and their animals. They are unvaccinated, spreading disease. They are not spayed or neutered, creating more and more unwanted litters of dogs and cats, adding to the overpopulation we have witnessed for years. Or they are tethered in such a manner as to put their lives at risk and make for a miserable life. Just last Christmas, my husband and I fostered a pit bull that had been attacked by other dogs while chained outside. He was provided no medical attention until Animal Services stepped in to rescue him and get him treated. It was pretty horrific. Looked like the other dogs tried to tear his ears off. We provided 24/7 care for him, tending to his many open and oozing wounds as well as a broken foot. He accepted the care very well and was quite docile. It took months for his wounds and foot to heal. His other wounds are of a longer lasting psychological nature, and yes, this does happen in animals. He has severe separation anxiety and will not tolerate other dogs. He requires some long-term training to have a decent life and learn to be separate from people at all, whom he surprisingly trusts, as well as learn that he will not be attacked by all dogs. As a result of being chained outside with no veterinary care, he also has heartworms. If he had not been chained out in the open where roaming dogs could get at him, and if his people had been responsible enough to seek veterinary medical attention for him, he would not be suffering from the many issues he has today. He is just one example in Burke County. There are many, many, many others. Basic veterinary care, vaccines, flea, tick, and heartworm preventative, and spay-neuter are all needed in order to create an adequate life for the dogs and cats in Burke County. As the citizens who are responsible for the animals here, we are obligated to provide this basic care, which will in turn create a different culture and attitude towards animals, reduce overpopulation, provide good homes with a future of good health and safety for the dogs and cats in our care. These ordinance changes are minimal and a very important step in getting Burke County's animal population under control, as well as improving the lives of the animals in Burke County. Please be sure to act with the welfare of the dogs and cats of Burke County in mind, rather than any other issues that threaten to pull attention from the purpose of the ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sam.
Lori Rice.
Hello. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the effort and the time that they've spent on these proposals and for accepting input from the community. Once there was a man who would go to the ocean to write. One day he was walking along the shore. As he looked down the beach, he saw someone moving like a beautiful dancer. As he got closer, he saw that it was a young man who wasn't dancing, but instead was reaching down to the shore, picking up something and very gently throwing it into the ocean. As he got closer, he called out, "Good morning, what are you doing?" The young man paused, looked up, and replied, "Throwing starfish in the ocean." The man asked, "Why are you throwing starfish in the ocean?" "The sun is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them in, they'll die." "But young man, don't you realize that there are miles and miles of beach with countless starfish? You can't possibly make a difference." The young man listened politely, then bent down, picked another starfish up, and threw it past the breaking waves. He said, "It made a difference for that one." I suppose we've all heard some version of that story. It is my or our story that we live by every day. These animals, they are our starfish. At times, the sheer magnitude can be overwhelming. Abandonment, accidental litters, overwhelmed dog owners who didn't realize what breed they were buying, sick puppies fighting for their lives with parvo or hookworms because they and the mother haven't had preventative care, kittens with distemper, respiratory disease, or becoming the next meal for wildlife or the roadkill you pass by every day. And I'd like to insert that this is still happening. Despite the lowered shelter numbers, these instances are still happening every day. Some we are helpless to save, no matter how much we try. Like the dogs who are chained, constantly entangled without access to water or shelter, dying at the end of their chains. I've seen it happen. No one can help them according to our current laws. But what if we could stop the tide from bringing these starfish to their suffering and death? That's what these revisions to Chapter 6 seek to do, fix the problem at the core. In no way is anyone here in support of hurting responsible owners, responsible breeders, or their animals. I believe all of us here want to do the right thing. We all believe in treating animals with compassion. Suffering is not the answer. Euthanasia is not the answer, but prevention is the answer. These revisions, if adopted, will provide the tools needed to promote responsible ownership and education and the responsible care of the animals in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rice.
Gwen Hood.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Gwen Hood. I am the president of A Better Life Animal Rescue and a member of the Burke County Animal Welfare Alliance. A Better Life Animal Rescue has served Burke County and surrounding counties for 11 years. I am here to ask you to approve the revisions to our county animal ordinance presented by the Animal Advisory Board. The revisions will make a difference preventing continuing existing problems and improve the quality of life for animals in our county. Protection, prevention, and quality of life. Those are the focus points of these revisions. Our group does family assistance in addition to the animals that we take on in our foster care program and our nonprofit organization. We have rescued this year 5 litters of puppies, all underweight, no vet care. They'd never received any vet care. 1 litter was under 5 weeks old. They were full of intestinal worms, and hookworms, as you know, can also kill puppies. We did family assistance already this year for 6 parvo puppies. All 6 were hospitalized. Hospitalization for parvo can range from $600 to $1,000 or even higher. It's according to how long the puppy is actually hospitalized, and that's per puppy, depending, of course, how long they're there. In 2019, our organization's vet costs were $44,198.96. In 2020, it increased. Our vet costs, and it's increased every year that we've been in Burke County. Our vet costs last year increased to $54,807.07. It continues to increase, and this continues to show we have a continuing problem here in our county. Rescues are doing all we can, but we cannot cover all the need in this county, which is another reason it is extremely important to pass these revisions. To highlight the need for tethering and chaining revisions, I want to tell you about Bella. She was a family assistant in 2019. When I got to the residence in Burke County, she was on a short chain. She was chained 24/7. She was lying in the dirt. She had no shelter, and it was in the middle of the summer. She had 2 of the worst prolapses I had ever seen in my life. She had a rectal and a vaginal prolapse. The owners did not know how long she'd been in that condition because they, of course, were not checking on her every day. She was trying to get to foliage that was there at the edge of the yard to get shade. The short chain was not allowing her to fully get under there to get some shade. She was in pain. She was covered in ants because of the prolapse, and she was also full of fleas. I carried her to the van, and I rushed her straight to Burke Animal Clinic, and Dr. Linda Schakowsky saved her life by doing an emergency surgery, and it was a successful surgery. She was actually owner surrendered to us. The family felt like they could not take care of her properly, which they were not, and they made a good decision. They went ahead and owner surrendered her. She is now adopted and living the life of a princess. I would also like to talk about
I'm sorry, Ms. Hood, your time is up. Thank you.
Jennifer Reese.
Thank you for, wow, that's loud. Thank you for letting us speak. My name is Jennifer Reese, and I'm a resident of Burke County. I want to tell you about my personal experiences with the current animal ordinance the way it is, and implore you to heed the advisement and pass the suggested sections that they are taken straight from AKC and ABDA standards, which it's good. I have followed these proceedings for years, remaining hopeful that one day you would pass an ordinance with changes for our domesticated animals to improve their conditions. This isn't about people, except that we are the ones that choose to bring the pets into our home. We choose to breed them. We choose how we contain them. We choose their health care, and we choose how they interpret the world by our relationships with them. People don't always make good choices. Thus, we have to have some guidelines and rules in place. My mother wanted a puppy, so I was raised, you just buy a full breed puppy. So that's what we did. The gentleman that we went to boasted he was an AKC breeder. So we went out to the property. He came out of his house with 2 puppies and told my mother she could choose either one. Those were the 2 left. I was ignorant. I did not ask to see where these puppies lived. I didn't ask to see the parents. I didn't know any better. 8 years later, this man was charged and convicted of animal cruelty, abuse, and neglect. This is local. This is why he didn't invite us in. This is why he didn't offer to let us see where the parents were and how they were raised. How many were sold out of this horrific place over 8 years since I purchased that dog, and how many died? Again, no guidelines, no opportunity for enforcement. The belief is that when someone is selling and they associate themselves with a breed club, that they are going by those breed club standards. That's how the public trusts. But this isn't always the case, and you learn it when it's too late. My father, in 2008, talked to me about a 6-month-old puppy that lived behind him on this chain. It's Teddy. 6 months old. He kept turning his water bowl over, as puppies do, and there was no predictability when the owner would show up. I encouraged my father to call animal control, and he did. Nothing was done, nothing could be enforced. Day after day, we watch pets in unsafe situations because there's no protection for them that's written in the ordinance. 2 German Shepherds chained to 2 trees. I drive by there every day that I go to work, always in the same 1 or 2 positions. For 10 years, I've worked there for 20. For 10 years, not one time did I ever see a person out there. I watched them age. It's tragic, and they live their life on the chain. Without basic guidelines, I hope that you can just put these very, very watered basic guidelines in place tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reeves.
That's all the cards I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak to this matter tonight in the public comment? All right, hearing none, let me thank all of you for being here tonight and speaking on this matter. I'll ask the board at this time if they have any further questions to our Animal Advisory Board or wish to discuss this matter.
Mr. Chairman, did you close the public hearing?
I can. Public hearing is closed. All right. Any questions, comments from this board?
Mr. Chairman, I have several comments. I looked at this again this morning and wrote a very comical response and information based, and I chuckled to myself all morning, but then about 3 o'clock this afternoon it hit me that some people love their animals more than they do dogs and might be offended by that comical view, but nothing wrong with it. It just, I changed my mind and did the following. My personal research provided the following statistics. I Googled the internet with the questions, how many times are dogs referred to in the Bible? Answer, 41 times. 32 times in the Old Testament and 9 times in the New Testament. Jesus declares mankind was created above all other created life. A dog or any other creation is not human. Matthew 7:6 reads, "Do not give dogs the holy bread." Matthew 15:26 reads, "It is not right to take the children's bread and feed it to the dogs." Matthew 7:27 reads, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." It could be argued that when you make an animal, dog, cat, horse, cow, doesn't make any difference, a pet, you change or alter their natural birthright, which is to be and to do what God created them to be. Since we make pets and service animals for many animals, we must have reasonable ordinances to ensure reasonable and safe treatment. The thing that I did with all those letters that all of us gentlemen got, I categorized those letters. I got a total of, I think it's 21, and I put them in the for category for the ordinance, and I put against, and a third category for with changes. Now for the for, it tallied 11. For the against, it tallied 6. For the for with changes, it tallied 4. If you add the against and the for with changes, you're about 50-50. You're 11 against 10. I think that what this says to me as one of your county commissioners, it's really not about the dogs to me. It's not really about the board. It's about the citizens of Burke County. That's who this board works for. Absolutely unequivocal, we work for the citizens of Burke County. And in that agreement for with changes is where I would place myself as your county commissioners. 80% of this ordinance is good. As a matter of fact, some of it is really good. But that other 20% is breaking my heart. And I agree with some of the comments that's made here tonight. By the way, tonight we had 5 for, we had 6 against, and I had 2, I'm not sure which way they were going, I didn't. But I'd like to say to my citizens, you, that 50-50 is not good enough for me. And I'd like to say to this board, 50-50 is not good enough. If we can't get this up to 75 to 80%, we're not doing our job. And a lot of it, as some of you mentioned, is the non-educational part, and that we did not do a good job of either advertising through radio, through TV or newspaper, of explaining to our citizenship what's really going on the animal control. I would be really bad if I didn't say to all those people who worked on the animal board, who's done this so far, I appreciate, what I am saying has nothing to do to demeanor what you have done. My point is simply this. This board can do better. I guarantee you, this board can do better than 50-50 odds. And that's what I'd like to see this board do. It is important. I've owned dogs all my life. I've had beagles. I've had some of the best beagles that God ever gave us in hunting dogs. But I never had any problems with anybody with my beagles except when they got out and they wanted to go chase rabbits. And that's what they did. And I have had to get up sometimes at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and go fetch my dogs because they weren't supposed to be out. And there's a lot of things in this ordinance. I kind of don't like the word overreach, but I do want to use the word too aggressive. And it doesn't help anything. And we are creating more problems than we're resolving with 20% of that ordinance. And I truly think we ought to take a second look, and I think we ought to have a joint meeting. We've never done that. We ought to have a joint meeting with this board and the animal board. And why we didn't do that, I don't know. But I would urge that we do that. I could say a lot more, but I think that says it in a brief as I can say it and express my opinion on the animal ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Other comments?
Sure. I understand why the so-called opposing side wasn't involved in this. It doesn't seem like they were involved in this at all, and why were not a couple of them at least part of this rewriting this ordinance. It doesn't seem fair to me.
Right. Well, I think what I heard, just to try to respond to your question, I think we did have some breeders that attended some of the meetings, but they are not represented on the board, Animal Advisory Board. Maybe that's something we need to consider.
But I think that's wrong. I don't think their voice has been heard except for what's been spoken tonight.
Other comments?
Just a word of clarity. I'm not on that animal board, but out of my schedule allowed me, I think, to attend 2 of the meetings, and that board did well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over several years ago, I gave some people an impossible task when we put this board together and said, let's make an ordinance, knowing that it would be almost impossible to do because there's 2 sides to this issue. As I look back, Burke County was a killing machine. We killed dogs and cats like crazy. We killed them. All of you people know that. I grew up with Bryce Montgomery, Eddie, we went to school together. And I didn't want this to come down to where it would be the breeders versus the Animal Advisory Board, but that's kind of looked like what happened tonight. And I didn't want that to happen. That was not my goal when we started out here. The goal is to try to save as many pets as we could. I love my old Jasper at home. He ain't much, but he's all God, you know. And he sits on my lap, and we have a good old time. Bryce, I know you're a hunter, and I know what you've done with your dogs, but trust me when I say it wasn't the intent for us to hurt breeders. I didn't want that to happen when we set this up. Did it go that way? Maybe it did. I kept sitting here reading. I don't know that we've hurt you. I didn't want to. Let me tell you that. And when we set up here, the 5 of us, and try to decide, you know, how we need to move forward, we need to move forward with something, you know, because we're all about advancing, and I want to make sure that dogs and cats are taken care of. I'm not a breeder. I mean, you know, Daddy took me rabbit hunting when I was a kid. I went squirrel hunting, and I admire you people for breeding the dogs. So from my heart, I'm telling you, and I think you all understand that we didn't intend for this to be a contest between breeders and the Animal Advisory Board. So if it got there, I apologize. Don't know how it did, if it did. So, but I do appreciate all of you being here tonight. But I certainly wish that some people had gotten in touch with me sooner. In the last 24 hours, my email lit up, you know. It just lit, and y'all know that. Every one of you know who sent me something. You spoke eloquently about what we have done. Our Animal Services Department, when we hired Caitlin and her staff, you look at the numbers now, we don't euthanize like we did before. like I said, we were definitely, Burke County was a killing machine. That's what we did. We killed a lot of animals. We didn't have anything in place. So with the attempt, with anything, when you try to attempt to do right, it's evidenced in this room here tonight. There's some sitting over here and there's some sitting over here, and we've listened to both sides. It's tough. I hope nobody leaves here tonight upset, because changes can be made. It just takes time. It takes a starting point, but you have to vote on something and then start and then relook. It doesn't mean that this is not fluid and things can't be looked at a little deeper and come up with putting people together, again, as Maynard said, putting people together and maybe looking at something a little bit differently. You know, Wade, Eddie, Denise, all of you, I appreciate you being here and listening to you tonight with what you said. So please remember, it is a tough decision for us as we have to contemplate how we move forward and what path we choose to do that. I thank you for allowing me to speak. Debbie and your board that's been together for a long, long time. Like I say, I gave you an impossible task, and I appreciate everything that you did from the bottom of my heart. I know it was tough on you, and I know people have said some bad things about each other behind people's backs, but I hope we're Burke County citizens, and we've always been able to live with each other, get along with each other. We see each other at the grocery store, church, and other places that we go. So it's not the end. It doesn't stop here. It can get better if you will allow us the opportunity to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just echo what Johnny said. It's tough. These things are tough, and you get passionate. We don't want, because I hunt too. And so, problem is, sometimes we're made aware of stuff in the last 24 hours, and we've been working on this for months and months and months and months and months. And Debbie and the Animal Advisory Board have done a great job, and that's why we created the Animal Advisory Board, to help us get the experts in there to tell us what's needed. Like Johnny said, that this is a living document. We've been willing to make continual changes. All of you that have witnessed that, taking over animal services, having our own code enforcement there, working with all the different groups. Just we pass this tonight. It's not like it cannot be tweaked. The breeders, we can always, as Jeff said, we can address that and get them included on the Animal Advisory Board. We can tweak that. So anyway, like I said, I just want to kind of echo what Johnny said.
Thank you, Commissioner Foley.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that we should have got the opposing side on board before it was brought to us tonight. I mean, that to me is just strong. You just had one side here tonight, and why they were left out, I don't know.
Thank you, Commissioner Avery. I'm going to do what I do occasionally and step out on the limb. And I'm not going to take any questions. Thank you. I'm going to suggest, gentlemen, an approach to you, and then after my suggestion, I'll open the floor for a motion, and you may move however you see fit. But as I've listened to what we have here tonight, I did not hear, at least what I thought was great opposition to Section 6-12, which is chaining and tethering that has been proposed. Perhaps we should consider accepting that section as proposed, and then going back and ask the Animal Advisory Board to continue some work and let's make a change. And I don't know if we can do that tonight, Mr. Counselor. I suppose we would have to present changing the makeup of the board as in advance without making that.
Yeah, you can adopt a portion or all of what has been presented here tonight to make other changes, I think it would be best to do that at a separate meeting.
So I think what I'm suggesting, gentlemen, is that we consider accepting section 612, which is the chaining and tethering section. And then we go back and consider making a change to the makeup of the Animal Advisory Board to include a local breeder. I'm just looking at the makeup of that board right now. It has two sections or two members as a member of a 501c3 animal rescue agency or foster agency. Maybe we could take one of those and make that a local breeder member. And maybe need to have some more discussion about the 8 and 9, which was to be added after hearing discussions tonight. And then go back with that. I'm not sure if the board can be effective in bringing us a breeder transfer section without having the breeder on the board. So JR, what would be the best approach to look at the makeup of the board before we move to that, looking at that section again? Do you have a thought there, sir?
I think the board could do it either way. There is a change made to the board makeup so that if you want to leave that out and then consider that at a future meeting, or you can consider all of it at a future meeting.
But you would not suggest us adding or changing that board makeup tonight?
No, I don't think without public notice that I think I would wait on that.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I think my suggestion would be to approve section 612 and then move forward with making some changes to the Animal Advisory Board itself. Once that's done, then proceed with working further on the breeder transfer section. I know that continues this process, but that's my suggestion, and I'll leave it at that. And with that, I will open the floor for any motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I failed to recognize JR. I asked him to look for some information. Did you find that information, JR, about what the average fine was for abuse, dog abuse, animal abuse?
No, I wasn't.
Pardon?
I was not able to find that, Mr. Taylor.
Okay. In response to your suggested action, Mr. Chairman, I still think 50-50 is not a good deal. I still think this board can do so much better. And I think this board should do better. And if we don't do that, we fail everybody sitting here and everybody else in the county. So I think we ought to let and I don't know how you do this, Counselor, let the laws stand as they are until we get together and we change what we feel like needs to be changed for the citizens and the animals of Burke County.
I didn't hear a motion exactly there.
Well, I want to make one more comment. Unless I'm dumb as a rock, which times I am, I don't believe I heard many breeders against 612, that section. I think yes. Okay. One, Denise, you were that? Okay. Well, I apologize. I missed that part of it now. But I'm going to make the motion to accept 612.
Okay, gentlemen, you've heard the motion to accept section 612, chaining and tethering, as presented by the Animal Advisory Board. All those in favor, please signify by the uplifted hand. Those opposed? That'll be 4-1. Thank you. Again, we appreciate all the input tonight. We'll move forward with this process as the board sees fit. Thank you again for being here. And
Mr. Chairman,
no, ma'am, we did not.
How are you expecting people to, what are you expecting them to do with their dogs after 14 hours? The ordinance is not solid.
The way that has been,
Please, I beg you, God begs you to reread it.
the way that was explained to me, I asked that question, and the answer.
Why are we not allowed to be on there?
I'm going to ask you not to speak out. I will answer that question for those who might have that question in your mind, because I did as well. What did that mean? The animal department, animal services folks told me that that simply meant you had to get the animal off the chain for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it might be. The animal had to be off the chain for a little while, and then it can go back. It doesn't mean it has to be off for the rest of the 24-hour period. That was the answer the animal services gave me. And I would again tell you that these ordinances are fluid, as Commissioner Carswell and Moe indicated. If we see things not working, that's what we're all about. That's what we're here for. We'll work on them. But I think this makes a little progress tonight. It's not maybe where everybody would like to be, but I assure you we'll continue to work, and we want to work together with everybody in this room to get an ordinance that is suitable for all of Burke County. So again, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for your input. And we'll move on now to item number 2 of scheduled public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
there were other sections of the ordinance that I'd like to follow up on, if that's okay. Section 673, reclamation by owner. Was that one okay? Then there was the section 680, community, well, that's probably in with the breeder. And then there was section 631, which is the general enforcement order or other relief. That changes the word civil fees to penalties. That's in response to some proposed legislation that's pending.
What was the first one before? 631?
673.
673 and 631?
131.
Okay, I'm 673,
That's,
right?
yep, page 57.
And 131?
Mm-hmm. That is on page 60.
Mr. Attorney, can I amend my motion to include those two?
You can make a new motion.
I'd like to make a new motion then, Mr. Chairman, if that's acceptable with you.
Okay, let's be sure we're all looking at the same thing here. So we're talking about section 673, which is actually D of that section, if I'm
Correct.
following the agenda properly. That deals with any animal found off the owner's property. And then, what's the next one, Madam Clerk?
131.
General Enforcement 6-30, 131.
131.
All right, I will entertain an additional motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept 612, 673, and 6131.
See, I missed 612. What is that? That's okay. That was the original.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That adds 673 and 6131. Are we clear now, Madam Clerk? You're shaking, but you're not sounding.
It's 6-73.
6-73.
Reclamation by owner.
And 6-131.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment, please?
Yes, sir.
At the pre-agenda meeting, I asked if these rules were set in stone. Do you recall the answer?
I cannot, no, sir.
Madam Clerk, can you tell him the answer?
No.
The answer was yes.
You say set in stone, what do you mean? You got
Means you can't change them.
Well, we're about to vote on 673 and 6131. That's the motion on the floor.
That's the reason I told you that. You need to know.
Right.
If it's set in stone and you vote yes.
Right. Any other question? All those in favor of this motion from Commissioner Carswell accepting 6-73 and 6-131 as proposed by the Animal Advisory Board, please signify by the uplifted hand. And those opposed? 4-1, Madam Clerk. Thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for keeping us on track, Kay. All right. Now, we will move on to public hearing item number 2. This comes from...
Mr. Chairman, can we let some people leave?
Yes, we may. We'll take
Thank you, sir.
Just a moment. Give you folks time to exit. All right. Thank you for reorganizing, and hopefully next item will not be as controversial, and hopefully I'm not sure we made anybody happy with the last item, so we'll try again on this item number 2. This is consideration of exceptions to performance requirements in the dig agreement for Alpine Mill project in public hearing. This will be presented by our county manager, Brian Steen, and also by Jenny Irwin tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, you may remember we were in pre-agenda and we went over the changes versus the original thought of what the project would provide as far as investments and other things to the board. And that was the basis for the grant. Ms. Irwin, of course, anytime you're involved with construction projects, things don't always go exactly as planned. And this is an opportunity to recognize those changes and an explanation as to why those changes occurred, and for the board to consider exemptions and allowing us to go forward with some portion of the grant award. And Ms. Irwin is here if there's specific questions to the project.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Irwin, for being here. If you want to come to the podium, I'll let you go through those items there if you like.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Irwin, and I appreciate your time and consideration. In the DIG grant, we promised to take a distressed asset, renovate it, and increase tax revenue. Our initial scope of work included 62 apartments, and we were turned down by banks because at the time there was a negative growth rate in Burke County for a 5-year period of time, and they saw the 62 apartments as being too risky. While we couldn't achieve a loan for that, we did secure one for 47 apartments, which we have completed, along with a 2,000 square foot renovation in which Premium Waters is located. They have 15 new hires on site. Additionally, we're in the process of renovating a 3,400 square foot space for a medical user who will occupy the space in June. They expect to hire 10 more employees, or 10 new employees. And then later this fall, at the end of September, we will introduce an additional 13 apartments, at which time we will have a total of 60 on site. To date, we have increased the tax value, or the tax base rather, 9 times, and we expect the next valuation for that to be increased. And we have invested $11.9 million, and we expect at the end of this phase to have invested $14.3 million. At this time, I'll do my best to answer any questions, should you have any.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. You've seen it presented in your package. Any question for the manager or Ms. Irwin? Seeing here none, thank you, Ms. Irwin. I will open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the aforementioned exceptions to the requirements set forth in the dig agreement for the established grant period for Alpine Mill LLC and approve a general fund balance appropriation of $14,410 to fund the dig grant payment to Alpine Mill AC LLC.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Gentlemen, you've heard this motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 5-0. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, this brings us to item number 8, informal public comments. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, I have two folks who pre-registered to speak. Ms. Barbara Norville.
Hello.
Good evening.
I have spent almost all of my 80-plus years in this town. It's a good place, and I'm real glad the stars aligned and I was granted that wish to be right here. We are right now in the midst of creating and reimagining our courthouse square, a place for all of our citizens to enjoy and use. It's going to be something. I think y'all will all agree with that. We need to think about all of our citizens. Might I suggest that we move our Confederate soldier to a place of honor that is not on our public square? There are a lot of good people here. We care about each other. We take care of our neighbors. We watch out for each other. And we need to understand that Confederate general, for one group of our citizens, reminds them of a painful, painful time in their lives and in their history. And if we could find an honorable place for our Confederate soldier, and he could be moved off of our public square, then I think we would be the good, caring people that we claim to be. I think we would like to think that all of our citizens would like to enjoy that new space that we're going to have in our downtown. We have strong city government, strong county government. We certainly have a vibrant downtown. Let's not exclude anybody from that space. It wouldn't be hard to honor our Confederate soldier in another spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norton.
Dr. Evans.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is S.R. Evans from Greenwood, Mississippi. I went to college at Washington and Lee University in Virginia. Went to medical school at Vanderbilt in Nashville, where I met my wife, Amy, who's from Morganton, and we chose to come here and live. I've lived in Morganton since 2005, which is going on 16 years. I work at the hospital as an OBGYN physician. I was on call at the time of the last meeting, so I didn't get a chance to speak about the Confederate monument. That's what I'm here to speak about tonight. I've delivered somewhere around 3,000 babies in the 16 years that I've been here. I'm a lifelong Republican, a fanatical hunter, love turkey hunting, have 2 hunting retrievers, found the discussion tonight very informative. I was a history major in college, and as a student at Washington and Lee, where Robert E. Lee was president from 1866 until his death in 1870, I was surrounded by Civil War history. I was drawn to this subject. Took Civil War history classes, visited all the Virginia battlefields, stood at Gettysburg, thought about what it meant to be a part of Pickett's charge. As a lifelong Southerner, a lifelong Republican, a student of history, and a doctor in this community, I ask that you do whatever it takes to remove the Confederate soldier monument. The monument makes me not want to go downtown. I love downtown, except for that one thing. It makes my daughter, high school student here, not want to stay in this community. My mother was here for Mother's Day, another lifelong Republican, student of history. She did not like seeing the monument. She said it's time for that to come down. I feel that if it stays, other young professionals that might consider to come here and live and work, raise their families, the kind of doctors that I try to recruit to come here, might not want to come. I feel that it creates an environment of conflict at the very center of our community. And I feel it's a powder keg that could explode at any time, but like it came close to exploding. I think it's a safety issue, and I worry that someone is likely to get hurt. I understand it's a very divisive issue politically, but I think the right thing to do seems clear. And I ask you, if you were black, how would that monument make you feel? I ask you to please do everything in your power to do the right thing when you get that chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evans.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do we have anyone else here tonight that would like to speak during public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Frank Tossalina. My wife and I moved from Hillsborough 7 years ago. One of the decisions we moved here was there was the Marriage and Family Act being voted upon, and 80% of the people in Hillsborough were not in favor of it. But 80% of the people here in Morganton were in favor of it. We said, that is a conservative county. I've been a lifelong Republican myself. I followed the news fairly well, not on the mainstream media only, but in alternate sources of information. I'm very upset with this country for the cancel culture that is taking place. Our history is being eliminated. I was certainly not in favor of the Civil War, nor or probably any of you or any of you. I think it's wrong for us to remove reminders of where we came from. In the Bible that you refer to, God often had people put monuments to remember things by. You can look at a monument and be offended by it, or you can say, thank God we're not there anymore. We are in a different place. Yes, the Civil War was wrong, but to eliminate any sight of it, any thought of it. And I was a teacher for 35 years. And I saw over those years, when I started teaching American history, the books really presented the position of conservative America. And over time, it went away from the facts of history and it became social things. They were talking more about social interaction, not the heroes and the founders of our country. And I'm just fed up with all of this. Let's get rid of history and let's rewrite it now. And there are people who would like to rewrite the Constitution, which I believe is very wrong. Our founding fathers were not perfect men. Most of them were deists. They weren't Christians, but they believed that this nation could not go on without people following the conservative position that the Bible taught. So I ask that you not move the statue. And I would like to see American history remain in place and not every time there's a new trend for us to, oh, let's rewrite the Constitution. Let's rewrite what we were. I'd like for history to be taught as it really is and really was. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tonsilline. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? Please.
terrified of microphones, but I'll do my best. I was born in Pennsylvania, and when I was growing up, I never heard a reference to, I grew up in Baltimore, I never heard a reference to the Civil War or to the Northerners or the Southerners. I never really thought of a distinction. My father was in World War II, my grandfather was in World War I, my two uncles were in World War II. I knew all about war, and I knew about what it did, and I knew how it affected my family. My dad came back from the war, and he couldn't even find a job. We were very poor when I was young, but my father worked very hard, as did my grandfather and my two uncles when they came back from the war. Thank God they came back. But I know how it affects families, and I've heard about it all my life, most of my adult life. And then we moved to the South, and I started going to a wonderful little Baptist church. We were in the choir, we made friends, we were in the volunteer fire department, my husband and I. This was about in 2007. And I got to know the people and their lives and a lot of their history. And a lot of them had ancestors who fought in the Civil War. And these are sweet, dear people. And they fought to keep their land. They fought to keep their ways, their lifestyle. It was a valid, important thing to them. And I treasure these friendships. I have them still. I don't live among them anymore, but I treasure these friendships. And I would be horrified if anything were done to obliterate something of a great remembrance to them. I'm sure that there are people in that Forest Hill Cemetery who probably did some bad things in their lives. You think? I mean, human beings are kind of like that. They do bad things. Everyone does things that are a mistake. But the things that we do and the things in our hearts that take us forward to volunteer, to fight for what we believe, they're important things, and they should never be removed. They should never be forgotten. Whatever would be removed there would make room for something else, for someone else's remembrances. I don't know what that would be. I couldn't relate to it, no doubt, because I'm too old. But I do respect and I do cherish these friendships I have, and I understand the memories that they have. And every time I visit a tombstone of someone I know or a graveyard, I think of all the tragedy and the good things, and I think it's really wrong to obliterate these remembrances. It's a remembrance of a culture that I'm now part of. When I moved here, I never looked back. We lived in Southern California for years and years, and we were teachers, my husband and I have never looked back. And I just love North Carolina, and I love the people here. And I don't want it to change. I don't want it to turn into another California. Please don't do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would you state your name, please?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Kate Tozolina. I live in Burke County. I live in north of the city, a little sort of north of the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else to speak tonight? Public comment?
You have to sign in. You have to sign in.
No, ma'am.
My name is Carla Kincaid, long residence, born on 126 Yellow Mountain Road, whatever you want to call it. I've been here since a little girl. My dad was one of the founders of Lake James Fire Department, James Kincaid. I worked at Western Youth Institute. I've worked at Burke County Public Schools, Valdez, as well as Table Rock Middle School. And now I'm a sub. I'm back home. I've been in and out. And I'd just like to say, when I moved back to Burke County, I live in the great community of Oak Hill, one of the best communities in the county. We've always been together, a together community, and we're the Quaker Meadows area. And I attended Willow Tree Elementary, first grade. Second grade, I went to Oak Hill. I'd like to say that I never, ever had too much of a problem, I can say not at all, with even knowing about racism or what it meant when I was in the Oak Hill community. Oak Hill community. I'm just going to say that. I experienced, when I came back, some of that at Western Youth Institute. I just felt like that some of the people there were hired, just got the job so they could have that Confederacy, feeling, because they didn't get to experience that. It was basically a plantation. I pray about everything, and I was so glad to see that go down. And that's what God does when I pray spiritually. It'll come down eventually, because WYI did. And I've experienced some of that in the school system. I'm not going to talk about it in the school system because that's not going to go down. Maybe some of the people will go, but not that. And then when I returned, I was on my way to Caldwell County because my brother lives there. And I brought my children here. Our children didn't grow up here. But I can remember vividly my son traveling 18. And there was a Klan sign as big as half of a billboard that said, Klan rally here today. I'll never forget it. Half the size of a billboard. I was embarrassed because I never experienced that. I never experienced when I put up the billboard out, when I was putting up the church marquee on Piedmont Road at Mission AME Church, and I'm going down to the back and somebody calls me a nigger on the church ground. And I still deal with things today. When we know better, we do better. And I go to Kentucky. I was in Kentucky a couple of months when the issue was going on about the flags. You put it up, right? Put the Christian flag up, take it down. Another embarrassment in front of my relatives. All the way in Kentucky, national news. Hildebrand's on the news about the daggone flag. National news. So is that what we reflect here in, and you know it. None of you guys are blind knowing that statue is very vivid now. It's seen more now than ever. My daddy worked for Wise out of that sheriff's department. He was a special police on the force with Wise. I went in there and took some of my summer kids on a program I developed into that art. I hate to see the jail go. I hate to see the jail go. I'm just going to say this again. When you know better, you do better. And that Confederate flag, the flag as well as the statue represents the county commissioners. What is it up there for? That's what I want to know, basically, from you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Do we have anybody else to speak tonight? All right, seeing here none, I'm going to close public comments at this time, and we will move on to item number 9. This is our consent agenda, and I'll recognize the county manager to cover the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have 15 items on your consent agenda. First, Burke County Public Schools, presentation of financial data for the period ending March 31st, 2021. Item number 2, clerk, appointment to Blue Ridge Community Action and reinstatement of seat number 2. Item 3, clerk, resolution, appointing and removing review officers. Item 4, clerk, reappointment to Drexel Planning Board, ETJ. Item 5, clerk, reappointments, removals to East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board. Item number 6, clerk, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council reappointments and removals. Item 7, community development acceptance, Jonas Ridge wetland property. Item 8, community development approve purchase of Parchief parcels. Item 9, fire marshal request for approval of a written agreement between Community Leasing Partners and Chesterfield Fire and Rescue Protection Association Incorporated. Item 10, Health Department, Child Protection, Child Fatality Teams, Calendar Year 2020 Report. Item 11, JCPC, Approval of County Plan for Burke County and Funding Allocation. Item 12, Partners Health Management, Partners Health management financial reports for the period ending March 31st, 2021. Item 13, Tax Department Tax Collection Report for April 2021. Item 14, Tax Department Release Refund Report for April 2021. And item 15, Western Piedmont Community College Presentation of Financial Data for the period ending March 31st, 2021. That concludes your consent agenda, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, you've heard the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve all 15 items as rendered on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Maynard. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That'll be all of us, Madam Clerk. This brings us to item number 10, items for decision. This one comes from County Manager, and a most exciting item, and Brian, the whole room has vacated the place. So we're going to turn it over to you to present the recommended budget for fiscal year 21-22 and the scheduling of a public hearing. Mr. Manager.
We'll have the clerk bring your gift to you. Gentlemen, as you know, we will need to have a public hearing for the recommended fiscal 2021-2022 budget, and that has been scheduled for 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. As far as budget development background, during January 28th, 2021, a budget retreat was conducted with the board. Since the retreat, requests from all county departments have been received and total $122,752,975. That's the starting point. I've conferred with the Deputy County Manager, Finance Director regarding information we received regarding availability of the American Rescue Plan funds to Burke County totaling $17,575,650. That's what we're being told at this point in time. As the interim expenditure guidelines came very late in the process for the budget, they came late on the afternoon of May 10th, 2021. We will assign potential funding amounts to the federally approved interim expenditure categories for future review and assignment for projects that the board will be asked to consider and possibly approve. Please note staff recommendations will be in compliance with the final federal rules related to authorized expenditure categories, and these rules should be issued by the federal government sometime in mid-July of 2021. In the recommended budget, it is recommended to continue with the current tax rate of 69.5 cents. For fiscal 2021-22, I recommend a total budget of $116,202,125, which is $6,550,560 less than requested. Regarding capital outlay for fiscal 2021-22, to include major projects will be restricted to expenditures identified and authorized in the budget of approximately $7,584,545 requested. The current recommended budget provides for $2,371,685. However, this is with the understanding that additional capital projects may be recommended in accordance with the final federal spending rules for the use of the American Rescue Plan funds, aka Biden bucks. And we'll have a chance to go through that at our first budget workshop.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Gentlemen, you've heard this information and received the recommended budget from our manager. I will entertain a motion at this time.
So move, Mr. Chair.
All right, that's a motion to acknowledge receipt of the manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 21-22 and to schedule public hearing for Tuesday, June 15, 2021 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as persons may be heard. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. That's 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right, so this brings us to item 11, reports and comments. At this time, we'll hear some reports. And I'm going to start way down there with Miss Margaret.
Oh, let's just call this my report. I think that's what I've spent a bit of my time on.
Okay, well,
Excuse me.
we'll be checking that out real closely in the next
Thank
few days. Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the last meeting of Commissioners on April 20th, we have successfully closed out the sale of our property at 115 Wamsutta Mill Road to Silcondo LLC on May 7th. I prepared the deed and the lease termination agreement and took part in that, which netted the county $1.724 million. I have reviewed the Linville Dam Boardwalk proposed agreement with Mattern and Craig and given my comments and recommendations on that. After the board's meeting of May 4th, I prepared and placed in the News Herald a legal ad for upset bids concerning the Hoff Development Agreement. That time expired yesterday at 5 o'clock without any upset bids being received. I have reviewed and commented on the proposed North Carolina opioid settlement memorandum of agreement and have attended 2 Zoom presentations concerning this. I've made recommendations to Animal Services concerning proposed changes to the animal ordinance considered tonight. I have reviewed and commented on the proposed interbasin transfer amendments and the proposed changes in SB 300, which would decriminalize ordinance violations. We're putting on hold the closing on the 14 plus acres in eastern Burke County. That project has been delayed by the death of the seller. The estate has yet to be opened, and when the estate opens, we will deal with the executor to finish that transaction, for which we have a signed purchase and sale agreement with the decedent. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, J.R. Madam Clerk.
I was going to say I had no comments, but it's come to my attention that on the animal ordinance, we missed voting on the definitions and section 610, as well as 6-4. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, I think we'll leave that alone and we'll deal with that perhaps next month as we consider makeup of the board on that matter, okay?
No comments. Thank you.
No comment.
Okay. Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chairman, other than what's in your information package, I was able to attend the Done Right Wolfen grand opening ribbon cutting. And one of my comments that I got a good chuckle out of, we feel like a hero when we get a good business coming from Catawba County coming into Burke, and that's the occasion. They have been in business many years in Catawba, and they chose to move to Burke County. And on another note, to the clerk, because I forgot to call her, Brian Horton from the COG says he thinks he forgot to send you some minutes. And if you'll check and tell me which ones he didn't receive, I will get them forwarded to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vice Chair? Okay, Mr. Carson?
Very quickly, to reiterate some things that JR said, the opioid litigation, the multi-district litigation, is nearing its closure on the national level. The only drawback we're having now is a conflict on attorney's fees. Attorney's fees in the settlement would be approximately $2 billion. Some of the local attorneys in North Carolina that represented certain counties feel that this was not adequate, and they are asking for a separate pot of money to be set aside for those attorneys to be paid out of the money that would come to the counties. As a member of the 555 committee, I vehemently opposed that they get extra monies out of our money that should be coming to North Carolina, to the counties. That is still up, I would like to say up in air and go away, but it is still there. I got an email just before we came here today that there's going to be further discussion. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but I think that settlement will be coming extremely quickly, and that will allow the county manager and the county finance officer again to look at monies that could be in excess of $15 million coming to Burke County for opioid abatement.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. And I don't have any additional matters tonight. Let me I'll give you several reminders. May the 25th, we have a scheduled budget meeting at 2 p.m. here in our meeting room. May 27th, also another budget meeting at 2 p.m. May 31st, our county offices will be closed in honor of Memorial Day. June 1st, our pre-agenda meeting at 3 p.m. right here. Then June the 1st, we will have a budget meeting following our pre-agenda meeting, if that is needed, right here. I would again remind you to spay and neuter your pets, adopt or foster a pet from Animal Services, and please don't litter. And if you see some litter, pick it up. We would appreciate it. Madam Clerk, vacancy announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have the following opportunities for citizens to get involved in county government: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committees, Council on Aging, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, the City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board in the ETJ, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, the Recreation Commission, Western Piedmont Community College Board of Trustees, the Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team, East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board, and the Board of Health.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, gentlemen, we do have need for a closed session tonight to discuss threatened or pending litigation, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to discuss economic development matters, to discuss contractual matters, and to discuss personnel matters. And I would like to invite our Board of Health Chair and Human Resources Director into the closed session as well. Could I have a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, 4, 5, and 6?
So moved.
Thank you all. Those in favor say aye. Aye. That's all of us. We'll take just about 2 minutes, gentlemen, and we'll get started in our closed session. All right, we had a proper motion from Commissioner Abley to come out of closed session, and with that, we'll entertain the motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I authorize the Chair of the Board of Health to offer a salary up to 10% above the midpoint of pay grade 37 for a prospective candidate for the local health director position.
All right, thank you, Scott. Gentlemen, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplift of the hand. That'd be 5-0, Madam Clerk. Do we have another motion there or not? Did that need a motion? Anything else we discussed? You marked it out? Okay, very good. That was all we chose to move forward at this time. So with that, I will entertain a motion to recess to the May 25th at 2 p.m. for a budget meeting. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That's all of us. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate you hanging to the 9 hour.